Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the second autumn 2015 update today. We're going to get several long range models together and see what they're showing compared to what they're showing last month. Last month update, I'm sure you remember, showed a pretty warm pattern for the autumn with high pressure up to the northeast and low pressure out to west. Not really sure, or we wasn't really sure whether the high pressure or low pressure was the main driver of the autumn, so the signal for precipitation was pretty weak. Some models were sort of showing that the high pressure was going to be the driver, so it would be quite a dry autumn. Other models wanted it to be quite a wet autumn, but they was all pretty consistent really with bringing up a lot of southerly flows and having a pretty warm time of it through the autumn. It'll be interesting to see whether there's been any change on that overall sort of idea for this particular update. But before I get on with that, just to make sure the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages at GadsOffice.com. Have a browse through widgets. Any articles that you're interested in, please click through. You'll be able to go off and read the article. And thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages. They open out within the content, and when you've watched them, they'll close back up again. Thanks so much for getting involved. And thanks to doing that, it's helping to pay for the website. Most of the links, or most of the models that you see in this video, you can find a link to them on the links page. So if you want to see any of the charts here for yourself, you certainly can do that. And just really say enjoy the video. I hope you enjoy it. It's going to be quite a long one, so you need a comfy chair and a cup of tea and a few biscuits, something like that. Going to be here for a little while, but I find it interesting and informative. So the first couple of models we're going to look at will just be covering the period from next month, August, going through to October, not the full autumn period, but then the rest of them after the first couple will cover the full autumn period. So started with the long range model from Russia. These are temperature probability maps, or this is a temperature probability map. We've also got a precipitation probability map to go with this as well. So in terms of temperatures, here we are through August through to October, and we're coming out with near normal to below average temperature probability here. Cooler out in the Atlantic up to the northwest, where I've got all the cold sea surface temperature anomalies, but over the UK actually coming out near normal, but no signal there, particularly warm early autumn, August to October coming up. The precipitation anomaly, here it is coming out actually a bit below normal, so a fairly dry autumn is being signalled there through the UK. So fairly cool, near normal temperatures and quite dry is the signal from the Russian model, just though going from August through to October, not covering the full autumn period. JMA next. Now I've looked at this earlier in the month, of course. I don't want to dwell too much on the JMA. Again, this goes from August to October. It doesn't cover the full autumn period. So let's go away from that, because that's August, go into September, and this is what we're interested in for September. And what we're going to see for September is that we have a ridge of high pressure here very close to the UK, so quite a lot of high pressure being signalled for September. In terms of the temperatures, it's seeing a relatively cool month up in the north and a little bit warmer than average down in the south. Overall, not a great deviation in terms of temperatures being seen. The wind flow is generally coming from a southeasterly, southerly to southeasterly type direction. So that would imply quite a mildish month, actually. I'm not sure if you quite make those black arrows out, but they are generally coming from a south to southeasterly direction. So pretty mild month would be expected, I think. Probably being a bit mean with the temperatures, actually, for September. The rainfall is coming down a bit wetter than average in the west, a bit drier than average in the east. So obviously there's some sort of ridge sitting around here, and there's some sort of trough just here, and that's bringing westerlies into west, but the high pressure keeping it quite dry to the east, something like that. So quite a complicated month for September, but overall I think that's quite a mildish sort of signal. And then having a look at October, a bit of a strange one missed, but the ridge is going more up towards the northeast as these areas of low pressure are attacking from the south and the southwest. So I think that probably is turning more and south, particularly for the south of the country in October. Temperature anomalies are coming out a little bit milder than average, so a fairly mild month coming up for October. The wind flow is generally easterly. I've explained this in the video that I did on this, talking about it in depth a few days ago. Easterlies in October are quite unusual. Normally it's a very westerly month, so to get easterlies in October, that's quite unusual. And the rainfall looks like this. Generally, again, quite a dryish month, but it is wetter down to the south. And I think what is going on there is that low pressure is moving up from the south and southwest. We've got the high pressure somewhere up here, and between the two, the flow is generally coming from an easterly type direction. So the north and the east probably gets the driest weather, the south and the west probably wetter. But the pattern for both September and October is rather unusual, rather complicated, and yeah, let's not dwell too much on that. Now, this is the Canadian model. This is CanSIPS, and again, we looked at this earlier in the month, but this will be covering the full autumn period. We're going to start off with temperatures for September. First of all, here we are. We're always right over the far end of the chart, almost off the chart really, on these longer range models, but there we are over in the far right hand corner as you're looking at it. Temperature anomaly for September is coming out about average, maybe hinted at being a little bit above average in the south, but really near normal temperatures generally going on there. As we move through into October, if we can get through to October, let's have a look. There we go, into October, and the temperature anomaly for October is looking a bit like this. Again, near normal really, a little bit warmer than average in the north, a little bit drier than average down in the south, so a little bit cooler than average down in the south, so that's rather odd. That it should be warmer than average in the north and cooler than average in the south. That doesn't happen all that often. And then going through to November, for November we see this. It does actually start to hint at going cooler again in the south, so a little bit cooler than average. Probably can't make it out, but it's a little bit cooler than average in the south, southeast, a little bit warmer than average still in the north. But I think the overall trend, and if you notice through much of Central Europe, actually it's turning rather cold, many central parts of Europe as well. So I think the overall trend for the autumn is to start off relatively mild, relatively warm in September, and gradually to trend cooler probably. So by the time we get through to November, we are hinting at being cooler than average. Having a look at the precipitation anomaly for September, we come out a little bit drier than average, actually, particularly to the north. So quite a pleasant September coming up there, sinking at being a bit warmer than average. Fairly dry month as well. That is quite good, and that'd be quite a nice month. Can we go through to October? I always get a little bit thrown with these charts from the CanSIPS model. So let's try to go through to October, and there we go, we've gone through. And what we see for October is that it's turning wetter in the west, so there's some sort of low pressure there. We're actually got near normal precipitation anomalies just there over the UK, but it's turning wetter out to the west of the country, but near normal rainfall for October being seen, but I think probably more unsettled compared to September. And then finally we go through to November, and this is the reason it's gradually trending colder through the autumn with the CanSIPS. We've got this ridge up to the north of the country there, and we've got low pressure down to the south. So between the two, we're probably pulling in sort of easterly, northeasterly flows, I would anticipate. So that's the reason it's gradually trending colder through the autumn. We start off with high pressure sort of around the country, giving us a warm, dry pattern for September, and then we trend it colder as we get through November. This was the signal from the Cairn-6 model last month. I'm sure you remember that. The Cairn-6 model was predicting progressively cooler pattern through the autumn last month. It still has that pattern for this month. That's what you want to see with these models, really. It's consistency. It doesn't necessarily mean that model will be correct, of course. It could be consistently wrong, if you get what I mean. But you do want to see consistency from month to month, ideally. Right, this is the Brazilian model, and these, first of all, are height anomalies for the autumn. This goes from September through to November, always different with this. So blue extrapolating to high pressure, and sort of yellow-red extrapolating to low pressure. That's normally the other way around on a height anomaly. So it has a lot of high pressure here through many parts of Central Europe. We've got some sort of low pressure around Greenland and Iceland. The flow would be going something like that. So that probably brings us quite a bit of dry weather, also fairly mild conditions also. The temperature anomaly, however, is only around average, maybe hinting at being a little bit cooler than average. Notice it is colder in the Atlantic, and that is occurring because we've got very cold sea surface temperature anomalies in the Atlantic Ocean, and quite how much of an impact that has through the autumn, we've got to wait and see. But it will limit the temperature potential, probably, particularly early on, and then become less important, I think, later on in the autumn. But early on, it could limit the temperature potential for September. Anyway, the temperature anomaly from the Brazilian model is coming out near normal, and the rainfall anomaly, not surprising really, is coming out, hinting anyway, excuse me, at being a little bit drier than average. So average to drier than average rainfall and near normal temperatures, the idea from Brazilian model, with quite a bit of high pressure influences. We're going to have a look at the products from America next, starting off with the experimental NASA model. We begin with the 500 millibar height anomaly for the autumn. This is from September to November. We've got low pressure in the Atlantic, ridging down to the south and southwest. This is quite a westerly pattern. The flow would be going through the country rather like that. So low pressure dominates to be north of the Atlantic, high pressure ridging from the Azores into Spain, and westerly winds would be the upshot of that. The temperature anomaly is coming out near normal again. Again, notice most of the Atlantic quite cold because of those cold sea surface temperature anomalies, but most of Europe actually coming out warmer than average across most of Europe. And what's going on there, of course, is that the low pressure is, excuse me, again, I've got a little bit of hay fever still going on, but the low pressure being driven in off the Atlantic rather like that. And because the Atlantic Ocean itself is quite cool, it means that for us the temperature anomaly is around average. But for most of Europe, those westerlies would be delivering above average temperatures. But whether we do come out sort of above average or below average, really to be decided on that one, but near normal anyway with the temperature anomaly. The rainfall anomaly looks like this. It actually hints at being ever so slightly in the north and west anyway above average, but not a great deviation. Again, it is near normal. Hugues van der Doel next. Now, what Hugues does is creates analog-based forecasts under the umbrella of NOAA in the United States. These are based on sea surface temperature anomalies from last month, when it's creating an analog-based forecast going forward. So very similar to the NASA model, really, I think here. We've got quite a deep trough of low pressure in the Atlantic around Greenland and probably going up to Iceland. Then a fair amount of ridging up to the northeast. The flow would be going like that. Hugues was predicting this sort of pattern last month. He's kept the signal for this month. And as with last month, the upshot is that we have quite a warm autumn. We're in most salmon pink colours there. So warmer than average temperature anomalies coming through from Hugues van der Doel. And the rainfall anomaly is wetter than average in the west, or to the west of the country, near normal to the east. And look at this over Scandinavia and Central Europe actually coming out drier than average. So it's still that battle between the high pressure to the east, the low pressure to the west. Do we get a wet and average autumn? If the low pressure is the dominating factor, then yes, we do. Or do we have a dry and average autumn? If the high pressure is the dominating factor, then no, we won't. We'll have a dry autumn. I think who is sort of going towards the wetter side of things, actually, with this update. Those wetter anomalies are closer to us. So warm and wet, really, is a signal from Hugues van der Wiel. CFS-V2, and very similar. Look at this, we have got a pattern emerging here amongst many of these models. We've got low pressure around Greenland and Iceland, we've got high pressure going through the Azores, heading in towards parts of Spain, and the jet stream would be coming through the country rather like that. So again, an unsettled but pretty Atlantic-based autumn being signalled by CFS-V2. All of the American sort of suites and models are indicating this type of pattern. Temperature anomalies are coming out about average. Again, this is very often what you see from CFS-V2. Is the whole of Europe going to have average temperature anomalies through the autumn? I think that's very unlikely, and really it's just that the model hasn't yet got the signal of what temperatures will be doing. The precipitation anomaly is hinting at being wetter than average to the south of the country, but I would think many parts of West Europe would likely have a pretty unsettled, pretty wet autumn with the jet stream coming in like that. So I think an unsettled, and probably on the pattern, on the evidence of the pattern, quite a mild autumn being signalled there. Beijing Climate Centre next, starting off with 500 millibar heights, and again, look at this, we've got the pattern here, which is low pressure around Greenland and Iceland, high pressure through the Azores, and the jet stream is coming across the Atlantic into UK. There is ridging up to the northeast, but it's further back, I think, than it was on last month's update. So I think all of these models are sort of trending towards a more unsettled autumn, going more towards the Atlantic being the driving, dominating factor, as opposed to this ridge, which is generally, I think, being pushed further back towards the east. So, with westerlies driving in through the autumn, the Beijing Climate Centre is clearly seeing a milder than average season coming up. We're in those warm temperature anomalies, and the rainfall anomaly is coming out wetter than average. So warm and wet, again, the signal from the Beijing Climate Centre, and reading between the lines, several of these models are going into that sort of direction. Not a consistent pattern. We haven't got total cross-model agreement with this yet, but I think gradually that is the way this particular update is trending. What about the UK Met? Well, this is going to throw a little bit of a spanner in the works, or it would do if I got the period right, but I haven't. So what I'm going to have to do is go down and change the charts over. So this is the chart for the autumn. Sorry about that. This is the chart for the autumn, and it's seeing the Atlantic trough there through the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean, hints at some sort of a ridge down to south. So it's not totally identical to what we've been seeing, but it is similar. Really, I think the Atlantic is the driving factor with that, albeit with a little bit of ridging down across the south of Europe. But I think overall the Atlantic is the driving factor there. If we can have a quick look at how the temperatures, excuse me again, how the temperatures go with that, we find that, well, for the north it's coming out a bit cooler than average, but most of the UK actually seeing ever so slightly milder than average temperature anomalies. Notice most of Europe having a warmer than average autumn once again. That's as the Atlantic air is driving in, of course. And then if we have a very quick look at how the precipitation anomalies are stacking up with this also, there we go, again going towards a wetter than average autumn with rainfall anomalies coming above average. So we have got a clear signal here as we're doing this, but the JAMSTEC is going to throw a bit of a spanner in the works, and this is the last one that we're looking at for this particular update, because the JAMSTEC IOD is indicating a cooler than average autumn. albeit with most of Europe, actually, most of Eurasia, very warm, but we're in colder than average anomalies for the autumn. The reason is clear from the precipitation anomaly. We've got quite a lot of blocking to the north. We've got drier than average conditions around Iceland, with low pressure underneath it, and the upshot of that is to bring down sort of northeasterly, easterly or northerly flows. And of course, although that won't be all that cold to start off with in September, once you get through to November, that is going to be bringing in cold temperatures. So it's really, I think, just the Cairn 6 for the Canadian and the Jamstec IOD, which is going towards maybe a colder type pattern emerging through the autumn. All of the other models, although the Russian is around norm, but all of the other models, I think, going towards the idea of quite a lot of low pressure, Atlantic dominance, strong westerlies, so a pretty wet autumn, and we have trended wetter. We have got a wetter signal compared to last month's update, but still that signal of being a fairly warm autumn as well. So that's the second update, and as I say, we have trended more towards wetter conditions, but also sticking with the idea it's going to be warmer than average. What happens for the final update is going to be very interesting to see. Will more of these models start to go more towards the colder side? Having a pretty cool summer, really. A lot of these models overdid the temperatures for this summer, I think. So it'll be interesting where things go for the final update. I've got the third final update coming up next month. That will be the last update, and then I'll have to come to a forecast from GaussObvious.com for the autumn of 2015. We'll also have a look at a few analogues with that final update as well, and we will come to a conclusion. We will give a forecast for the autumn of 2015, so come back at the end of next month for that. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching.